Okay, everybody, this is Taz Street with Positive Out Loud. Today I have a very cool guest on the show. Her name is Riss Sue, and she is a leadership coach and a performance and a breathwork coach. And I've seen her online and I've watched some of her videos on YouTube, and I thought she was quite, she just was just there, for, straight from her heart, helping people to expand and to evolve into who they really are. So I just want to thank you so much, Riss, for being on the show, for being with us here, and just for being here and helping people.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I was really excited when we connected. I actually saw that you interviewed a good friend of mine, Sandra, who is also a healer, and was just interested to learn more about what you do too. So.
Awesome. So I think the first why we're going to go with this in the beginning here is what exactly brought you into this field where you want to be a breathwork and leadership coach, and what kind of challenges did you face beforehand? And is this something you ever thought that you would be doing?
That's a great question. I actually never thought that I would be doing this. And when I started on my healing journey, actually with breathwork and other modalities, I had no intention of teaching other people to do breath work or for it to turn into more of a leadership coaching opportunity, and it's really just evolved, and it's been something that I've kind of come into, and now I'm just really passionate and excited about this work because it has allowed me to transform my life in such a powerful way. I can't wait to share this with other people, so they can, feel empowered to take on their own healing and just be able to move forward with their lives and be really effective and conscious leaders in whatever field that they're in.
So what type of mentors did you have through this process that you were going through?
I had so many mentors. I've been incredibly fortunate. My background, just to share a little bit, is actually in corporate America. I have about 14 years of staffing and recruiting experience, working with a variety of different industries, but really some of the best talent in the Los Angeles area and beyond. I've done a lot of international recruiting too, because I work for a Hispanic advertising agency for the last 6-7 years. And actually the last 9 years of my career has really been in advertising and the creative space. So I've partnered with mid-level managers and C-level executives to scale and build their teams here in LA in advertising. And that's everything from doing, corporate training, recruiting, and doing employee relations. And I think that's really just gave me a very high acumen for problem solving and building relationships with people. So that background has really been what my expertise has been in. And then a couple years ago, it's actually fairly even new for me. About the last 4 years, I really started getting into my own healing and personal development work. I've taken leadership classes. I like about 10 years ago, I did a really amazing leadership program through SAI seminars, which I had great mentors there. And then I have just been consuming content at a crazy rate. I mean, literally just everything that, speaks to me, as far as like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden. My teacher, David Elliott, is actually who I've studied under for breathwork in particular. And then I also have studied in quantum touch, which is another healing modality with Tyler Odysseus. And what else have I done? I've also taken advanced levels of Reiki. And that was from Laura Elliott here in Los Angeles. And then my longest mentor has been actually somebody within the Publicis Network who really took an interest in helping me to develop my corporate career. So she's really been my corporate mentor. So there's no short answer for that. I think I've had I've had so many mentors along the way. And I just think that it's been just such a beautiful process getting to know myself and just understanding that healing is so possible if we just really ask for help. Because I think it was the moment that I asked for help that teachers started to appear before me, and I'd be like, oh, this is really kind of, something different that I would have never even thought to seek out. But they just started popping up, and I said yes every time. I was like, okay, this must be for me. It feels right. And it hasn't steered me wrong yet. So I've been very lucky with, mentors that have come into my life to kind of teach me and guide me along this healing journey that I've been on.
So you said this started about 4 years ago, and it's great that you've been so open to all of it, because some people were like, oh, that's kind of weird. That's kind of woo-woo, But I just love it when I run into people who are like really open to just to that healing journey, no matter what type of modality that may be, because a lot of people are pretty closed off to that. And then it's hard to get whatever work done that you need done within yourself to heal. So what kind of challenges or struggles were you facing at that time where you realized, oh, there's really something that I need to look at?
Sure. That's also a great question. I think my life changed the moment that I got pregnant with my son. My son is now 4 years old, and that completely changed my life. I think prior to having my son, of course, you're a free spirit. You can go out and do whatever. It doesn't affect anybody else. And I also got into my relationship with my husband, my now husband. We've been together for about 7 years now. And we met each other in a period of time in our lives when we were having a lot of fun and making great money, and we just wanted to travel. But we were, we're out partying and having a great time in the world. And I think that particular lifestyle, the way that we were living it, was not sustainable. It's not something that, over time it starts to catch up with you and you start feeling, not so great about life. So I think it was definitely a combination of things. It was the place where I was at in my relationship. It was the relationship I didn't have with myself, because I really felt terrible about myself. I had very low self-esteem, but you would have never known that, because if you knew me, 4 years ago, I had the largest network of friends. I went to all, amazing parties. I was always out doing stuff, and very similar, to now. I still go out and have a great time, but it was a lot different focus back then. So even though I had a lot of people around me, I just really felt empty inside. I felt empty inside. I was struggling with depression, and actually struggled with depression for most of my life, since I can remember. Probably it started in my teens sometime, but it's something that followed me all the way through adulthood, and I was never able to shake it. I never understood why I was depressed. And then anxiety started to creep in, where it was getting really bad. And it was just a process of, things kind of coming together and then coming apart, literally. Because as I mentioned, I got pregnant with my son, and then my son was born. And I think that really causes, it's a rebirth. I mean, once you have a child, you realize, wow, my life is completely starting over, and it's completely started over. And now that I'm a mother, like, what kind of mother do I want to be? Like, who do I need to be the best person for my son and for my family? And that's really what kind of catapulted me into this transformation, was my son being born and just wanting to be a better person. And then, finally coming to a head with all of these issues that were in my life, being overweight, being depressed, having anxiety, and just feeling that general emptiness where I didn't understand where it was coming from. And that's really what led me on this healing journey. And I have jumped into it with my whole heart, and just really haven't looked back, because I feel like the more work I do on myself, the better my life gets. So. Exactly.
I totally relate to when, when I was younger, just going out, having fun with my friends, avoiding whatever feelings I was feeling inside. And I think when you look at it as a whole, when you look at teenagers, right, that I'm not really too concerned about what's going on inside of them, because they're just reacting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I was doing as a teenager. And then when I went into the military, and it's just like totally avoiding all of that and just thinking that the whole world outside of us is who we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole world outside of us will dictate our emotions and feelings and all that stuff without even contemplating that there's an inner state of being. And that's where, whether you succeed or fail, it shouldn't affect your inner state of being, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Right. And so you were able to gain some knowledge and tools to help people with that. So tell us a little bit more about the breath work. I'm really curious about that.
So breathwork is amazing. I think it's one of the things I'm actually sober for I'm going on 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that happened when I stopped drinking and kind of just decided that wasn't going to be a part of my life anymore is I had this huge onslaught of emotion. So, because I think when you're constantly on the go and you're kind of soothing your feelings or even stuffing your feelings through eating too much or drinking too much or whatever it is that you're doing too much that's not making you feel great. You're going to have to, at some point, face all of those feelings. So for me, a girlfriend of mine actually took David Elliott's breathwork training, and she was becoming a healer. And she was like, "Oh, you should do a session with me." And I did my first session with her. It was a remote session, and it was so powerful. And from that moment on, I was absolutely hooked because it just felt so amazing. And the biggest part for me too, I know when you're talking about emotions and kind of how we suppress them, I grew up in, I have a very mixed background. So I'm part Chinese, I'm part Scandinavian, I'm also First Nations. And I grew up with a Chinese grandma, and in our family, we didn't really talk about emotions. And she was very stoic, and she was a very strong woman. She was a businesswoman, and there are so many amazing things that I learned from her. But one of the other things I learned from her is that really a tough woman, a strong woman, doesn't show a lot of emotion. We don't cry. And so I had years and years of suppressing emotion.
So she when you cried, what would happen in that relationship?
I mean, she never made me feel terribly bad about it, but we never talked about it. We never talked about why there was pain or what to do with the pain, or so I never really learned how to process the pain. And,
it's like that should be like one of the most important things that people should learn as a kid, right?
Yes, definitely. And now when with my son, that's one of the things that we really focus on is I talk to him all the time about his feelings and just try and help him, find a place for them and understand, just work through it, just talk through it. Even though I'm not trying to like fix it or make it all better, we just talk about it until he feels better.
So you totally cut that whole generation, and you did something totally new. It's amazing. Yeah.
It's been an amazing tool. So how breathwork ties into that is the first session that I ever did, I literally felt like, oh my God, like that was like 10 hours of therapy in one session. And it's only 25 minutes of active breathing. And in that 25 minutes, I literally felt the sadness and the depression and just the heaviness. I felt all of that heaviness just leave my body. And when I was done with the session, I just felt so light and just happy in a way that I had never experienced before. And it just felt like connecting. The way I connected with my body that day was an experience that I hadn't had before. I didn't even know my body could feel that way. So it was very powerful. And then from that point on, I just kept going to breathwork sessions around LA. I went to different teachers because everybody has their different style. They bring their own energy to it. And different music, different teachers, all different kind of things. But I literally was going to a breathwork class almost every weekend. And then I started doing it on my own, practicing it, at home at least once a week by myself. So then I decided after, I kind of was going to all these classes, I'm like, I just need to go and take the training so I know why this is so amazing. I want to know everything about it because I feel like it's been so helpful for me. And it was so helpful because it was the perfect place for me to put my emotions, especially when I didn't even know how to really verbalize my emotions. It took me a long time to be able to say, oh, I feel sad because X, Y, Z, or even identify different feelings. So being that type of person I was not in touch with my emotions, and was not able to clearly communicate them. Breathwork allowed me to process my emotions without having to talk it out with somebody or even necessarily understand everything that was going on in order to be able to let them go. And that's not to say that I'm not advocating for talk therapy, because I've also gone to therapy, and I think that therapy is amazing to see a professional and to talk your issues out with a psychiatrist or a counselor, whatever, people feel comfortable with. So I'm not advocating that it's a replacement for therapy, but I certainly feel like it's a very powerful tool that you can use in conjunction with other things to help you understand and process your emotions in a bigger, more powerful way.
Yeah, I've experienced breath work with the Wim Hof method. I don't know if you've heard of that, where you do the cold therapy and there's certain breathing. And I went to an advanced workshop and we sat there and breathed for about 20 minutes or so. And we start off really slow and then we speed up the breathing. And then I noticed for myself that I just started feeling these emotions came up, and I just started crying and let it all out. And then I was fine after that. And I kind of like that. I kind of like that instead of being so attached to figuring out what the problem is and how can we fix this. And like you said, talk therapy is good in some ways because it makes you realize, oh, this is where that came from. But for me, I just want to release that, whatever that emotion is, because it's it's energy that's stuck in our body, right? And it just needs to go. So I don't need to know what it's about. I just want it to go.
Exactly. I mean, and not everybody needs, there's individuals that may have, different conditions where they should really be talking to a professional. But I think, for other people like myself, I breathe for myself at least once a week. And that is my stress relief. I can literally feel all the tension leave my body, all the stress out of my shoulders, and just everything. Like your body just melts and you feel kind of weightless, and you have euphoria from it as well. I think with Wim Hof, he's amazing, and I definitely love his practice. The breath work that David Elliott actually teaches is more, it's similar to journey work. So, people who have done journey work with plant medicine would probably feel really comfortable doing breath work. And even if you haven't done any plant medicine type modalities, people really, really enjoy it. But it is kind of a little bit of a journey in a sense that, you lay down, the practice of it is really going inward. It's an active breathing meditation. So what we're really trying to achieve is that stillness of mind. You're trying to turn off that inner critic that's always, yapping at us in the back of our mind. And that critic can be pretty mean, so it's just kind of stilling that voice. So the other voice that's a lot kinder and has all of our creative ideas and our intuition, and it's really our light, our inner voice that's guiding us to do the guiding us towards our purpose of discovering why we're here and what gifts we have to share with the world, and just to be more at peace and really tap into joy, which is my favorite thing, because I think all the most beautiful things in the world come from our gratitude and our joy for just being here and having this gift of life. So.
That's what I totally felt once I started going to when I went to the Dr. Joe Dispenza week-long event, doing that really intense, like 4 to 6 hour meditations.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never thought I would be able to do. And then once you're there, you're totally committed, right? I mean, you paid the money, you traveled there, you're like, I'm going to do this. And because, you know, when we're in our day to day, it's hard for us to come home and say, oh, I'm going to meditate for 3 hours. I mean,
exactly. That's a big commitment. Yeah.
Right. So if you can just take yourself out of your normal routine and go somewhere else, and that's probably pretty much what you do with the breath work, right? People take themselves out of their, wherever they are, and they go to some type of studio and do breath work there. I don't know how long are the sessions usually last?
So the sessions I do, I either go to people's homes if they're here in LA, or they come to see me, or I do virtual sessions quite often, because I do have clients that are not in LA. They're all over the country, and it's about an hour long altogether, maybe a little bit over an hour, just depending on how much chatting we do, just to kind of see kind of where they're at and kind of what they want to work on in that particular session. So I would say about 90 minutes on average.
And so is this like a combination of what you're putting together with breathwork and the leadership, or is it two separate things?
Yeah. So what my vision is I've really been thinking a lot about how I was going to share breathwork with the world, and like what are my particular areas of expertise that I could actually share with people to help them in their lives to kind of get unstuck and actualize some of these gifts that they have. And so my job in corporate and working in advertising as a talent manager really was doing corporate training and then employee relations. And so over the years, when I've been working with executives and managers and just our employee population overall, I've really found that people have needs in 4 core areas. And if they are able to sharpen those 4 core areas, then it really equates to extraordinary leadership. And some of the best leaders that I've met and worked with in advertising had all of those areas, or they had at least 3 of them. And so I think the magic ingredient for me that I've really discovered is it's breath work, because initially, you know, we all have an IQ and we have a certain level of intelligence, and that is something that, you know, allows us to move through the world and share our gifts, and ultimately it's our intellectual property. So those are all the things that we are able to, you know, share and give from that standpoint. And then the second way that we, you know, share our gifts are through collaborative intelligence. And collaborative intelligence is, I think, where the next wave of leaders really need to focus their attention, because with everything being automated and digitized and outsourced, and really our talent market is changing exponentially. Like it's faster than we can see, that a lot of the junior level jobs are being automated and more administrative jobs are being automated. So in order, you know, to have a competitive edge in this talent market, you're definitely going to have the art of, you know, collaboration, which is relationship building, being able to connect with people and really understand what it is that they need, so you can help each other and building long-term relationships. As a recruiter, I have had my candidates on both sides of the desk, meaning, you know, I place them at the job of their dreams, and then, you know, a year later, I was working with them as a client, and it would just go back and forth and back and forth. And so I definitely have built my career on long-term relationships. And I think that it's not a skill that everybody has in learning to follow up and how to collaborate well with other people. And that's going to be one of the key areas again, and being, you know, competitive.
For myself, I've been in the federal career. I've had this federal career for 22 years, and there's some people who are really good at their job, but they're horrible with dealing with people, because they get caught up in their emotions, and and they just don't know, or they're not very positive, that sort of thing. So this is where this would really help, I think.
I definitely, and I think it's becoming more common that people have less and less social skills because we spend so much time behind a screen and not in front of each other, that we're not really having really deep and meaningful conversations. We're not connecting with each other at a personable level. So it's a skill that's being lost. I mean, there's actually studies that, our millennials, they have the worst social skills out of all the generations because they are, behind screens and they're texting instead of having a phone conversation. Mm-hmm. And, in business, one of the things that, we would talk to the teams too about a lot is, don't email a novel. If it's going to take you more than a couple minutes to write the email, then you actually need to go and speak to that person and have that personal conversation, because you're just going to get more stuff done that way. So I think it's definitely one of those areas that's lacking. And that's really an area of my expertise that I can help people, learn how to build relationship and
just facing like that conflict too. People have a really hard time with conflicts, and then it builds up and builds up, and then they blow up, right? So, being able to emotionally just step back and say, this is not working well, and how you can approach somebody and say, this is not working for me. Can we do this a different way?
And that's actually part of my program as well. There's this amazing lady, Kim Scott. She wrote this book called Radical Candor. That's now this huge training program. She has a TED Talk as well. But I actually put together a program in my corporate life for the team. And it's really a way of being in relationship with people and communicating very clearly and very kindly. Because I think people forget the kindness part. And if you forget the kindness part, your whole message is going to be lost. So, so it really is, clear and impactful communication is a big part of it. And then the third area would be emotional intelligence. So we've already talked about IQ, and then I know emotional intelligence, I think a lot of people have been talking about, and it's been almost like a buzzword the last couple of years. And, what does emotional intelligence really mean? Well, again, it's just another way to be in relationship with other people, but also with yourself. So it's just creating an awareness of how you communicate. So it's, being a great active listener, and, how you reach out to people to build relationship again. So a lot of it is, and then also talking about failure, because I think a lot of people don't try, to do things or even set goals for themselves because they're afraid of failing. And failure is also actually awesome. It's been my best teacher. It's, and I learned really early on from my mentor, it's like, well, if you're not failing, then you're not trying. And, we're going to fail over the term. It's going to happen. And it's all how you recover from the mistakes and the failures. It's not that we have to be perfect. It's that we are constantly looking for the growth opportunity in every situation. And that's another key area where emotional intelligence is really going to allow people to, to get that promotion, to be able to make more money. Because that's what a lot of professionals ask me. Well, how do I get that promotion? I want to be, a VP next. I want to be able to, make over 6 figures. And if you want to be able to perform at that level, then you have to have these key areas of intelligence.
And then also to be able to work hard and to be committed and all those things all together, right? I mean, not and to know that there should be a balance, right? Not to work to the point where your health is suffering, or all these other things are going on for you.
Definitely, you don't want to run yourself into the ground trying to be successful. And I think that that's actually one of the things that led to my healing journey as well, because I've always been an overachiever. And when I worked in the staffing industry, I was at the top executive in the top account executive in North America for one of the largest staffing companies in the world.
Oh, wow.
And I had, a couple $1 million book of business that I worked with in downtown LA, working with like Big 4 accounting firms and law firms, and really just a variety of really high level Fortune 500 companies. But I burnt myself out, trying to
How many
be.
hours were you working?
I was working insane amounts of hours. I mean, probably like 14 hours a day, if not more sometimes.
Wow. And you can't do that with a kid now, that's for sure.
No, it's not sustainable. I think you can definitely do that when you're young because, you're building. But when you start getting a little bit older and your priorities change, I think you definitely reevaluate, and quality of life becomes a real issue. And even in advertising, I worked for one of the best cultures in advertising. My agency and the leadership team there were just amazing. They really cared about the people that work for them. But just the nature of the beast, the nature of advertising is that people, they do work until 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. They're getting up to take 5 a.m. calls from, international calls to talk to shareholders and clients and different things. So it's very high stress. It's very busy. And that was another thing that really cued me into, well, what's the key missing area that people are not catching on to that would help them really thrive and be able to maintain that type of performance over the long term? And so that leads me to the fourth area, which would be body intelligence. And when I say body intelligence, I'm talking about the intelligence that is innately built and designed into our body that we're not even aware of. It's constantly running in the background. And people like Dr. Joe Dispenza and Greg Braden have all this research out. And, they're both scientists turned spiritualists. And so I think even Greg Braden said that, he got into studying spirituality because he was going to prove it wrong. So, and it really went the other way. But, and what they're finding is that, our cells hold our emotions, and, from the smallest neuropeptide, and it's held in different areas of our body. So the dis-ease that we have, the cancers, the anxiety, the depression, the things that we suffer from on a daily basis are from the emotions that we're storing in our body, that we're suppressing, and it could be consciously or subconsciously that we're suppressing these things. But it needs to go somewhere. It needs to go somewhere, and we need to be able to release it to be able to, not be killing ourselves in the process of trying to be successful or being successful. So, breath work is really the modality that I found that's very accessible and very easy for anybody to use, because there's no contraindications for health, or there's no health reasons that would, hold you back from doing breath work. I think if you're on certain medications, it could to some degree be a little less effective. I have had some clients that are on, antipsychotic medications, and they still get benefits from it, but they don't feel the emotion as powerfully because those medications are designed, to repress emotion.
Right.
But I have found that, I've worked with clients in all walks of life, and many different types of dispositions and all kinds of different challenges, and they all come to the same conclusion that it's just extremely powerful being able to be in their body and feel what's going on with their body, because we're just not cognitive on a day-to-day basis of really what's happening in our bodies. And this whole idea of, I don't know about you, but when I learned that our mind and our body were separate, and that was how, I would go about my life, because I'm like, oh yeah, they're totally separate systems. But now we know, that they are not separate systems, that it's actually all one system. So we have brain cells in our heart, we have brain cells in our gut. And so these are our bodies are very intelligently designed. And so if we know how to use them, and we're running our bodies effectively, and we're doing these exercises to release the stress out of our body, we'll get a lot better performance out of our body. And, performance, a greater vitality, you're going to get more energy. I think, and just, be able to just access more joy. I have a lot of people that are like, I just don't know, what makes me happy or what joy feels like because I've been depressed for so long. So it's a beautiful thing being able to help somebody really tap back into their body and be like, wow, I didn't even know I could feel this way. So, and instantly, it's not like you have to do like 100 sessions of breath work to feel different. It's literally the first time, when you do breath work, you have that wow experience of, this is something new. And I had no idea my body was this powerful.
Well, when I think about it, if I get angry, my breath changes. If I get calm, my breath changes. If I get happy, my breath changes. It's like the breath is so connected to the emotions and what's going on in the body. And of course, it makes sense that if you go through this breathing journey and you go through this breathing process, that things would shift for you because it is all connected.
It's very much connected. And that's a great point that you make, because I think when we get angry or sad, we tend to kind of just cramp up and we start breathing very shallowly from the top of our chest. And so when we're not breathing into our stomach, which really our gut is where all of our emotions are. So the breathing technique that I use is having, big full belly breaths. And that the reasoning for that is because we want to get that flow down to your stomach where you're holding all that emotion. So whatever you have percolating down there, you can just let it go and you instantly feel better. So.
And so I like the way that you have it's like a 4 pillar. It's like you have a table. And these are the 4 pillars that you have for your program. So you have the intelligence, you have the emotions, and you have the body, and the collaboration. I mean, that really makes a lot of sense in the way that you put that all together. I like that a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, it's what I call the core 4.
The core 4.
Core 4 to extraordinary leadership. And I really believe in it because it's been my life, and it's been, my journey to wellness and really my journey to be an extraordinary leader. Because I do consider myself an extraordinary leader now. I've done a lot of work on myself, and I don't say that to necessarily brag. It's just really about, sharing that it's possible. Because where I sat 10 years ago, it was not possible for me in the mindset that I had and the beliefs that I had about myself and the world. It was not possible. If you would have told me that I would feel this just happy and free and, I don't have it all figured out, but I still just wake up every morning feeling so grateful for the life that I have today and the things that I've been able to heal from and the people that I'm able to help now. So it all comes from a place of pure love and gratitude and wanting to share, and in the hopes that it will really impact other people's lives and allow them to, get out of that unstuck place. Because I know if I went through it, that there's definitely other people out there that are going through it, and just from talking to my current clients as well. A lot of people tell me that they're feeling stuck and they just don't know how to get out of it. So they just kind of continue on in this cycle of not feeling good and just feeling like there's something better for them out there, but just not knowing how to access it and not knowing what the next step is to making a big change in their life so they can have that peace of mind and that joy.
And I think it's a step forward in the schools because my daughter's going to start kindergarten this year, and in her school they have the emotions and have somebody that is in charge of helping them with their emotions, which I think is
great.
Really cool. Yeah, so they have signs up that says, this is a happy face, this is sad, how are you feeling today, and take a look. And I think they have that on a daily basis where they go in and they talk about their emotions and that sort of thing for a certain time period during the day. And I don't remember ever having any of that when I went to school.
Certainly not. Me neither. I went to a Chinese Catholic school. There was no talking about our emotions at school.
No way. Yeah.
But no, I think this next generation, it's so encouraging. And that's another reason why, I do this work as well. It's really for the future. It's for our kids that are coming up. Our adults really need to get on top of this, because our kids are ahead of us when it comes to talking about their feelings, and their generation is going to be more evolved than ours. And that's the goal.
That is the goal, for having them to be happier
forward.
and more joyful. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
if you can do a comparison so people can see, they can learn from you, is how did you see yourself wake up in the morning? How did your day go before you learned all these things, compared to how it goes now when you wake up, and how you relate to the world and your body? How did things change for you? Can you give us an example of what it used to be like first?
Oh my goodness. That's a good question. I'm gonna have to think about that for a second.
I know it's been a while, right?
Yeah, it has. It's been a while. I remember, well, for one thing, I'd most likely wake up really hungover.
I understand that, yeah.
And really grouchy. And I hated mornings. I was not a morning person. I just felt like, opening my eyes, it was just always a painful experience. Like, oh my goodness, and I think that I was not a very grateful person. I think I viewed the world from the lens of, why don't I have that? Or what does that person have that I don't have? Like, I want to have that situation or that life or those things. And I very much, it's a very ungrateful way to look at life. And it's not a very happy way to look at life either, because then you miss all of the beautiful things that you do have, and all of the things that even the very simple, beautiful things that you have, like having a roof over your head. And,
so would you just kind of react to things throughout the day? Would you get angry, sad? How did your emotions come up?
I was very reactive. I think
Reactive,
I was very, I think most of my friends would tell you that I was pretty social and very bubbly, but I also had a very quick fuse. Like if I would blow up, I had definitely a wicked tongue. So I think my emotions were just kind of all over the place, because I was not a very good self-regulator. So,
a lot of people could relate to that for sure. I mean, we've all been there. So,
yeah. And I think that's the biggest superpower that I've gotten through doing all this work, is being able to be a leader of myself, be a leader of my emotions. When you can actually sit and select your emotions as carefully as you would, choose your outfit for the day, or, putting together your meal plan, or whatever it is that you put a lot of care into, your thoughts and your emotions can also be selected in the same fashion. Well, I think your emotions kind of visit you impromptu. I should probably back up a little bit there, but
emotions can sometimes come up because maybe we're stuck in some type of belief or some type of pattern that's going through our brain, and then once we become aware of it, then we have the opportunity to go ahead and change it, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I think it's more when emotions come up, you get to observe them and then choose what you want to do with them, instead of being really reactive. And I think that was the biggest change for me. So when I wake up in the morning, don't
write that bad email.
I know, right? You're like, do not hit send. Don't be reactive. Yeah. And also being open to feedback. I think that was a big change for me as well. Is I'm in a place in my life where I really care genuinely about what people think and say around me. And I actually heard another leader not too long ago say, well, I don't care what anybody else says. I just, I'm not going to listen to anybody if they have something that's, bothering them, or they have something negative to say about what I'm doing. I'm just going to cast it all aside. And I think that is, one school of thought, but I think that for me, it's the opposite. I definitely care deeply about what people think and say. And even if it's something that is not even if it's negative, I think I'm still open to being curious why that person might think that way, and just kind of trying to come from a place of understanding. And that's been the biggest part of growth for me, is not being reactive, but instead being curious, and then trying to understand. even if I
it's
don't.
always those people out there like,
Yeah.
I don't care what they think about me, just like so gung-ho, kind of like Gary Vee, right?
Yeah.
Like that.
I love him, actually.
I love him too, but he's not quite open to what other people, because maybe somebody has some constructive feedback for him that he can take in, but he's just who he is,
Yeah.
and
He's
that's understandable. Yeah.
unapologetically who he is. Yeah. But
But
that's why you love him too.
But I love that idea that you have there. It's just like being totally open to what everybody's thinking, but not necessarily having to believe in what they're saying, but just like, oh, do I do that, or am I like that? How am I running my life like that? Or is that really true?
Yeah, and just being curious, and then understanding like what lesson you want to take from it. Because ultimately, if you can find lessons in everything that's happening to you and that's going on in your life, that's where your true growth is going to come from. Because that mentality that things are happening to us, it takes away our power. And so, where I sit today is the belief that everything is happening for me. If it's coming into my life, then it's something that I need to look at, or that I want to look at, because it's going to help me grow in some way, whether it's comfortable or not. And most of the growth is very uncomfortable, but once you get over that hump, you're like, oh wow, it's so much better over here. So yeah.
So you find yourself much more aware of when you wake up in the morning, because you're not hungover. You're open to, oh, it's another day, and I get the opportunity to live another day and be here and be grateful. And then do you kind of set up your day of how you want it to look, or how does that work for you now?
I do. I think I start kind of thinking the day before, even. That's how I kind of close out my days, thinking about what I want to accomplish the next day. And I think if I'm not able to do a breathwork session, then I get my meditation in the morning and before my son gets up, and just being very purposeful about how I'm going to spend my time, and who I'm going to spend my time with, and where I'm going to go, and just looking forward to those things, and having gratitude in as many moments as I can during the day. Because I think it's really powerful practice to seek out gratitude in every situation that we have.
So for the people out there listening who are feeling stuck and kind of depressed, what are some things where you would suggest that they start doing, or just start tapping into?
I think definitely gratitude. I think that's an easy one. I know I've said it a lot, but it's because it works. It works very quickly as well. So even when I catch myself starting to go down a road of self-doubt or depression, I automatically say, okay, what are 3 things that I am grateful for right now in this moment? And just thinking about those 3 things, it just lifts my mood immediately. And I'm able to move on, with my life and not get stuck in that place, which is a huge thing, because in the past, if I got depressed, I might be down for a week or 2.
And who knows what you would do because of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. When you're depressed and you don't feel good, then there's all other things that end up piling on there, like overeating and overspending and over fill in the blank, So
yeah, now when I don't feel good, or if I'm catching a cold or something, I just want to come home and relax and just kind of chill and not even be too concerned about anything else out there, because I don't want to make a bad decision, or I don't want to say something wrong, or because we got to know what our limits are, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think when we're getting sick, it's our body telling us we need to take a break anyway. So it's usually a good time to kind of pull back a little bit. And then I think meditation is also extremely helpful. I think so another teacher said that breath work is the gateway to meditation. So, which I wholeheartedly believe, because if you would have told me, or actually many people told me to sit and meditate before I started my healing journey, and I was like, this person is nuts. You think I'm going to sit down quietly and be still for 30 minutes
with the
to
crazy
an hour?
monkey mind? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, that it was just not effective whatsoever. And I did try to meditate several times, and all I ended up doing was sitting here thinking about all the things that I had to do, what I wasn't doing right, like just being even more critical of myself. So when I started doing breath work, that was when I really was able to get into a very deep meditation. And that was the first time in my life where I experienced like a peaceful, quiet mind with that inner critic turned off. Because what breath work does is it triggers the part in your brain for fight or flight. It turns that part of your brain off. So you can go into the rest and repair mode, and you can actually accomplish meditation after you've done a breathwork session, because then your mind has quieted itself down. So it truly is a gift, like when you can sit quietly and not think about anything. And you might have floats that kind of are thoughts that float in and out of your mind, but it's a lot more peaceful. So breathwork also allows you to learn how to meditate, because now I can actually meditate for an hour, just quietly meditating and sitting still and being in my body, and really enjoy it. Where, before, again, I would have been like, you're nuts. There's no way I'm sitting still for that long. And I don't even understand the purpose of it. So,
yeah, what helped for me with the meditation was I would first try to sit there and do silent meditation. And it, some days would work better than others. But once I started doing the guided meditations with Dr. Joe, and they had the music and focused on that and focused on my breath, that was the sweet spot for me. I mean, everybody's different. Some people love silent meditation, but I think if people go out there and they just kind of investigate and experiment with what may work for them, you'll find something that could be really helpful, right?
Oh, definitely. And that brings up another great point. I think breathwork is a modality that I'm passionate about, that I absolutely love, and I think that will work for a lot of people. But it's definitely one of like a million out there. There's so many modalities, and some of the people I talk to, breathwork does not resonate with them, but they're still interested in learning the leadership skills, and that's totally cool as well. But yeah, I mean, there's so many modalities out there. It's really just about allowing yourself to be curious and have an open mind, because some things do seem a little woo woo, or even that may be a little bit scary because it's something that we don't understand or we've never heard of it before. But once you kind of open that gate and dip your toe into the pool, then you get really excited about it, because you realize, wow, this is really helping me grow, and it's exciting, and it becomes really fun.
And it gets us much more connected to our bodies, because we're so stuck in our heads a lot of the times. Because, being at work and being on the computer, it's all just, we're just in our heads the whole time. So for me, what helps is to get out of that computer and go for a walk and go outside and get some fresh air and breathe, right? And
get a little grounding and take your shoes off.
whatever you need to do, because going from home in your house to going to work in a building, getting in the car, it totally disconnects us from nature. And I think that's so important, because then once you get connected to nature, then you feel more connected to your body.
Oh, definitely. And there's something so peaceful about it. My son and I go hiking at least, once every couple weeks, and just being out in that nature again, like it just totally changes your whole attitude, and just kind of reminds you that you're not so big in the world with all the mountains and trees and everything, and just looking at the ocean. So then going to nature is really helpful. And
when you look at the whole universe, we're like, the earth is like, ding, not
I
even
know.
drop of sand.
Tiny little grains of sand. Yeah. It really is humbling, right? Humility is important too. But yeah, in the grand scheme of things, we are just a tiny drop in the ocean. So
why are we so worried about things?
I know, right? There's got to be a bigger plan if we're just, basically ants running around.
So tell everybody where they can reach you with, like, on Facebook or on your website.
Okay. So I have a website. It's rissu.com, which is RISSHSU.com. And then I'm also on Instagram as Breathe with Riss, RISS.
Oh, cool. So and you're on YouTube as well, I saw, right?
Oh, yes. And I have a YouTube channel. And actually that one might be a little bit harder to find, but you can actually find find me on Facebook under Thrive Breathwork, and also on YouTube as Thrive Breathwork too.
And you have some videos where you teach people how to go through some of the process of breathing, which I thought was really, really cool. So if you're curious about this breath work, I would definitely check out Riss on YouTube or probably Facebook as well, right?
Yeah, definitely check it out. And I love talking to people about it. So if you're just curious and you have some questions, and I'd love to chat with you more about it.
And I'll definitely put all your links below in the details below, so people can get a hold of you. And I just wanted to thank you again so much for being here, for being on the podcast, and for sharing your knowledge, and for being vulnerable enough to let people know this is what I went through. These are the challenges I had, and what I've done with my life is just phenomenal. I've totally went from 180, from here to here, and now. And I love the fact that now that you're taking this and you're learning all these things and you're helping people help them with their lives as well, because you have the empathy and you have the experience of what it's like to be in that depression and that suffering, and that's no fun. So I love the fact that you're putting yourself out there and you're helping other people.
Well, thank you. No, this has been delightful. And yeah, I just, I guess if there's one final thing I would say, it was really that I believe that each and every person has everything that they need within them, to have an amazing life and to be well and healthy. And it's just a matter of finding the right support to get you there. So that's what I feel, my calling is now, is just to support others in their journey. So
awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right.
It's great chatting with you.
All right.
Bye.